Top of the Props is brought to you by Barkingham Palace Dog Grooming at Lemire, 1/10 Holiday Road, Lemire, where every pup's a king or queen. Find them on Facebook, Barkingham Palace Dog Grooming, Macarthur. If you'd like to sponsor Top of the Props, contact us, the 81st Minute at outlook.com. We are back for another episode of Top of the Props, and this week we have a Warriors legend, a Kiwi legend, represented his country 27 times, and of course was part of that almighty Bradford Bulls team of the early 2000s. We'll get to all that in a second. Joe Vagana, thank you very much for being on Top of the Props with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Joe, let's jump right in, mate, and I want to ask you a question about growing up as a footy fan and as a top prospect in the world of rugby league in the Auckland area. Back before the Warriors came into the competition, can you explain how strong and a bit of history of that Auckland Rugby League competition before the Warriors were around?
Yeah, well, I was like many other kids who was growing up watching the Winfield Cup it was back then. Mm-hmm. So I think it was the days when there wasn't remote controls for the TV. You had to get up and push the button, mm-hmm. turn the volume up and down. But the Winfield Cup was around. That was a big influence for a lot of us young kids, as well as the All Blacks. So rugby league was strong. Grassroots rugby league was quite strong back then. And so, if you weren't playing rugby, you were playing rugby league in Auckland.
And that is so. and that today, even today, the struggle for the Auckland Blues versus the Warriors and rugby league in general, always fighting an uphill battle for the best kids against rugby union mad country. What was it like? Did you have interest from rugby union coming through the ranks? Did you play, like you just mentioned? Did you play union as well?
Yeah, we were growing up in the days where schools you had to play rugby for your school before you go and play league.
Mm-hmm.
So, the first 15 was priority. However, the school that St. Paul's College, which has got a rich history of rugby league success in college league over here, we actually entered one of the earlier competitions in Auckland, which we ended up winning. So, the priority of playing first 15 wasn't so much when we started winning the local competitions and winning a bit of computer equipment for the school, which worked out well for us league boys.
Were you always a big unit?
Yeah, I was always quite big, fast, twinkle toes, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was always a halfback stuck in the props body.
I feel your pain, mate. I feel your pain, and that's why I started this podcast. I just wanted to do something for front rowers, and some people might find it surprising, but front rowers, like, everyone's got a great yarn to tell, and I think people don't understand. There is an art form to playing front row rugby league. There really is, and I know there's a lot of you got to be better than your opponent one-on-one, and you've also got to lead your team too. But there's little intricacies, if I pronounce that properly. There's little things that make you a better player than someone else, isn't there? And for a front row, it takes years and years to develop, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, they say it's you don't fully develop till you're 27, 28 in the front row department. Whether that's changed these days, I'm not sure, but I think that was the age that was we were told that you don't really fully develop into a front row until that age, and it definitely is. It's one of those positions, and and the years I was growing up, I was coming through the game. Man, there was some front rows that I used to look up to, and they were just class everywhere. So I had a lot of main opposition, and a couple of teammates that I was able to learn my trade and earn a few bruises and bumps, and while I was learning.
And you played for the Richmond Rovers in the local competition. How old were you when you first played A grade, first grade? I guess you could call it. When did you get your first start there?
Yeah, I was 16. I was 16 at the time.
How was that?
Well, I was a centre. I was a bit faster back then. I was a back rower, and the team put me on as a centre.
Yeah.
Put me on as a sub. I got on the field. The team were playing back then. We used to have a lot of Kiwis players returned from the UK, and this current week we had a Joro Party who had returned in from England, and I think he was still in the verge of the test team in the mix. He tapped the ball as a winger, tapped it, ran straight at me, and I remember rolling back a couple of times, and that was my introduction as a 16-year-old to Premier football.
And you played for the Junior Kiwis for several years in a row. So you're always earmarked, I guess, for higher honours. Could you feel that as a kid coming through? Was there some hard heads in the local competition over there that wanted to get one over you and just remind you or bring you back down to ground, bring you back down to ground zero a little bit?
No, I think back then, the competitions, like I said, rugby league was quite strong. There was before the professional game came through, from under 10s, under 8s, under 10s up, there was always a lot of competition going on. And so as we grew up, we sort of grew up as mates because a lot of us, there was always a few of us that ended up making the rep team. So there was good competition. We started making good friendship. Some are still carrying on to this day.
And for people out there that maybe not across the history of Auckland Rugby League, do yourself a favour while we're all in lockdown and have a look at the background of that competition. And for people out there that don't know, this is how good the Auckland comp was and the depth of the players they had. And you might remember this, Joe. An touring Auckland side went over to the UK in 1987 and they beat Leeds and Wigan. Two huge sides in England.
Yeah, I think we got an Auckland team that went pretty close, or gave, I think it was Australia, a good run. Run for their money. Back it was Carlo Park was the main ground back then, back in my days, and we had the likes of Manly come, Graham Lowborders, the team came down, and I think, which I was quite lucky to be part of that team that played in that game, but against the Cliffy Lions of these worlds, and it was Marty Bella. So we had a lot of teams, and there were some strong Auckland teams. There was, like I said, there was a lot of ex players when the English season would finish in the winter, they would return back to this side of the world and play in the local comps. So it was strong competitions. And just to put in perspective, back then, when you're coming through the under 16 grade, you might have a 16, 18 teams for the year. What the professional game it is, and current, my son's played in the under 18s last 2 years ago, and there was only 6 teams in that.
Wow.
And that's Auckland comp. So the grassroots has changed in that sense. But I guess with the professional game, a lot of young kids have moved on to try and better make their career, make their mark over, particularly in Australia.
Yeah, and scouting's a big thing too. There's scouts from every club, everywhere these days too, and it's very similar in most competitions and most regions. Once were rugby league strongholds, and for different reasons they have whittled away a little bit. So just going back to Carlaw Park as well. So that was the mecca for rugby league fans in New Zealand, wasn't it? And unfortunately, it's no longer. And I think there's apartment blocks or something over the top of where it used to be now.
It's apartment blocks, buildings, bus offices, and that. So no longer the home of rugby league in Auckland.
Did you get you would have played a few games there too, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I was quite lucky because it was the last few. It was my start of my top side career, but the last couple of years I was able to play in Carlaw Park, because that's where they play the Sunday afternoon games. Was at Carlaw Park.
Beautiful.
Great memories on a great ground.
And I just touched on then too. You first got picked for the Junior Kiwis in '92. That's the very same year where the Warriors were confirmed that they were coming into the New South Wales Rugby League, or the ARL as it would soon be known, in '95. Did you have much dialogue with the Warriors? Because as they developed, they obviously had to build from the ground up. Did they have much to do with you before '95? Were they part of your process and development coming into that first year in '95?
No, not in '92. I think things started. The ball started evolving in about '93, where they had Auckland Warriors, or they had just these one-off teams that got selected for a tour, a three game tour to Australia here and there. So I think it was '93 that, if I recall correctly, things started happening. But it wasn't. I mean, back then it was still a long, long way from the Warriors actually happening. So we were just a bunch of kids who just loved playing league back then. So was able to get in a couple of teams that, like I said, had a 3-game tour to Australia here and there.
Now, look, I got to be honest, Joe. When I was doing some research before we spoke today, I just had it in my head. I was thinking late '90s, maybe '97, '98. Big Joe came onto the scene, took everything by storm. But some people may not know, but you were obviously part of that 1995 squad, and you just missed selection in that round 1 team. So you were in the sidelines, you were in the crowd that night.
Yeah.
Round 1 against the Broncos.
Round 1, I was in the reserve grade team. So again, man, that was unreal when that first week, the build up. It was for someone who had just grown up playing in the local parks to having the hype it was, where I always say it was almost equivalent to a 50-50 split with the hype of the All Blacks in New Zealand back then. It was just great times, and the advertising going out, and being able to have the inaugural Auckland team to face an Australian team every week. It was just wetting everybody's lips, and it was great times. So I missed out on the first game, so I played in the reserve grade, but I managed to get in. I might get myself in on the second game.
Yeah, that's right. We'll get to that in a second. But I just want to ask you on a personal note, Joe. Were you the kind of kid? Were you dirty? You missed out on that first team, or you were just happy to be part of the squad?
Oh, listen, all this was still new to me. It was like I said. One minute we're just, we're playing local park. Next minute, we got cameras and we're playing in front of 30,000 people. So. I was just excited to be there. So, so I wasn't dirty. No, I wasn't dirty. I was, like I said, that first year they had signed Gavin Hill.
Yep.
Who was he was current Kiwi prop.
He's a goal kicker as well, wasn't he?
He was a goal kicker, yep.
Yeah.
We had, I think it was Andy Platt as well. Haito was there, who was a few years senior to myself.
Yeah.
So like I said, I was just wrapped to be part of the surrounds.
And you mentioned round 2. So round 1, there's all the hoopla of the first week. There's 30,000 mad rugby league fans in at Ericsson Stadium, as it was at the time. And then we get to round 2. You make the 17. It's your first grade debut in Wollongong. You go down. I think it was 40-28. What was that like? Can you remember coming off the bench? Can you remember the moments before you ran on for your first grade start?
It was all a blur, like I said, it was only maybe 2 years before that, or even a year. I was sitting in a lounge watching the Winfield Cup. I think I just turned 20.
Yep.
So it was all just happening. It was just it's like a bit of a blur, but even just the traveling, the whole professional routine of flying overseas, staying in hotels, the track suits to boots. You're getting boots. I was like, I was a bit unreal for a young fella who, professional sport wasn't really in back. It wasn't really a norm for rugby league back then. So. A bit unreal, but I know there was. I remember a lot of nerves. It was. I think it was Darren Fritz. I think
Darren Fritz with the mullet. Yep.
With the mullet.
Yeah.
And I remember, I just, there was guys in there that I remember, just guys I used to watch, and I was just overawed, and I think I did all right, but I can't remember. Just went in, like that.
You growing up as a kid in Auckland, who did you have? What was your What was the player you had on your wall, the poster on the wall? Who was your number one growing up?
Uh, for myself, it was Mark Graham.
Yeah, yeah.
He was a Kiwi captain,
Hmm.
and just the way he played tough. But also, I had the likes because the local club I played for, Richmond Rovers, and a good family friend was Solomona.
Yep.
So I was able, I put him up there, and he was able. Luckily, he was in with the Warriors as well, and the Warriors set up for the first year, so he was able to take me under his wing a bit and give me a few tips here and there. But definitely Mark Graham. So Mark Graham and
Solomona, who
Solomona.
started in that first game as well against the Broncos,
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, you go from a kid, as you said yourself, watching the Winfield Cup on telly, and then all of a sudden you're playing first grade rugby league in the top Australian competition, which still is the premier rugby league comp across the world. All of a sudden, you're the poster on the wall within a year or two. You're the pin-up boy. Did you realise at the time, and I know you've already said that your first grade debut was a blur, but did you realise, was there a point where you said, "Oh, hang on a sec, all these young Polynesian boys coming through Auckland, or could have been any forward aspiring forward. All of a sudden, you're the poster on the wall." Did you understand that at the time, of what you'd become?
No, I didn't because I guess we were the first wave of Polynesian.
Yeah.
As for the Warriors, as a Polynesian fellas coming through as professional players, and to be traveling weekly, to be, like I said, having everything thrown at you that comes with being a professional athlete. We were the first, so it was unknown territory for myself, and I didn't really know it, but I guess when you're playing in one team. Not even one city. It's one team, one country. There's a spotlight on you, and when you're the first team or the inaugural team, there's a hype that came with it, especially in those first years. So there was a lot of unknown territory with being in the spotlight.
Yep.
For the good and the bad. But it was I wasn't used to it, and I didn't realize that I was just a young kid who loved playing league, and I had good mates that was in the same setup as myself.
Yep.
I was just enjoying myself.
And we spoke about some of the guys around that 95 squad, and what I noticed too, and if people want to go back through that 95 squad, just jump on the internet and have a look. But a few names that come to mind. There was a heavy import influence to go with some of the local talent, which obviously was good enough to play in the Australian first grade competition. Guys like Phil Blake, Greg Alexander, you mentioned Andy Platt. Dennis Betts, was he there the first year or the second year?
He was there the first year.
Yeah,
he came. Yeah, he came. He was there. He was a big signing.
Yeah, and Dean Bell, he came back from the UK as well.
Yeah, he was the inaugural captain as Dean Bell. But it was just, just being in the same room as Brandy and Phil Blake, man, it was something out of his worlds for a young guy who'd just been, like I said, been following the Winfield Cup, and next thing I know, I'm rubbing shoulders with these fellas in the same team. So, but those guys, they were able to bring. They were used to this professional training and environment. So, the way they trained changed our mindset. I'd come from a Tuesday, Thursday training in the park, Saturday run on the field, play the game sort of thing. And then as it got closer and closer to the 95 kickoff, that's when we started training 5-6 days a week, and different weights and swimming and all sorts of different training methods. But the way these guys, their attitude, Brandy and Blake and Dean Bell, all these guys who've been playing a bit, had a few years under their belt as pros. Yeah, just their attitude and mindsets to training was the difference. It's what really able to spread it with us younger fellas.
And you mentioned travel as well. I mean, that would have been would have been crazy, the first couple of years for the club in general, and for the coaching staff to work out what the best methods were to get the best out of players for away trips, particularly if you had to go back to back. Did you guys find it really difficult to find what was best for the team, or was it just try something different, every year? Was there different methods involved in trying to get the best out of away trips and try to get a win as much as you could?
No, there wasn't. Well, not that I know of as a player. I think, it was always, if we're playing Saturday, we'd always leave on the Friday morning sort of thing, land on Australia after 3-4 hour flight, get out, do a captain's run, get a bit of sweat on, loosen the legs and the limbs after 4 hours on the plane, on maybe an hour on the bus. And then, captains walk in the following morning before on the game day. So, but I guess there's been a lot of science that's thrown in it over the recent years, and now they're going, business class. I guess helps. We were always in the cattle class back then.
Yep.
But like I said, hey man, we're just enjoying flying overseas, getting on a plane, getting our, the privileges of parking up in the front of the airport was, all those little things. That's what we were buzzing out on.
And if your head wasn't spinning already, in 1996, your name is read out for your New Zealand Rugby League international debut. You guys play Papua New Guinea in Rotorua, and you win the game easily, 62-8. But to put this pack in perspective, and you talk about depth, the starting side, Pongia, just some names here, Pongia, Iro, Carney, and Horo, they all started. And what about this for a bench? Ellis, Vagana, Ruben Wiki, and Tyron Smith. So do you remember that day, debuting for the Kiwis?
Yep. It was again another one of those unreal moments for myself. I remember walking in to the team hotel, and Frank tells me that I'm rooming with Quinton Ponga, and here's my room.
Yeah.
You just go up to your room. I was shitting myself, because
yeah.
Quinton's, he's he's been there, done that, and he's already got a reputation as one of the tough guys of rugby league, and he's from the West Coast and the Goldie Mines here in New Zealand. So I was a young kid. I was shit myself getting in there, and I opened the door and I disturbed. He was having a little nap, and I woke him up, so I was even more petrified. But yeah, no, he took us. They were great guys. Took us under their wings and just made it all comfortable for us. For myself, it was a newbie, and just again, like a lot of other guys, just gave us a few tips and just told us to have fun and enjoy ourselves and do what we did that got us here.
And if fast forward years and years later, the Kiwis win the 2008 World Cup, and then from there, there's a bunch of tournament wins, and now today, it's you flip a coin against Australia, New Zealand, England, all these teams, but back then there may not have been as many wins, say, against Australia, but was it a different vibe in a Kiwi camp back then? Because there was a bit more localism about it, more guys playing locally. Was it a different vibe to, say, when you first went into camp with New Zealand in 96 compared to 2006, where I think you won a tri-series or something around that time as well?
So I guess over those years, everything had improved, evolved. The game had changed. Player shapes have changed, and so from those first years, I think things had changed. Players had changed, but there was, I can only speak from a New Zealand camp, and I'm sure like other camps, there's always that brotherhood that always stays the same, whether you're making your test debut or you're playing your 55th game. So in that 2006, I think it was, I was only called in at the end. I was actually having a holiday with the family, and I think it was Greece, and I forgot a phone call to come in if I could fill in for a week game against England, because one of the boys was with injury and that. I had to persuade my wife and kids if I could go back.
I was going to say,
a
what
couple
did
of
your wife
days
say?
early. I mean, luckily I've got a understanding wife who knows that, you don't get many opportunities to play for your country.
Yep.
And I was out of action for a few years. I hadn't been selected for I think 4 or 5 years in the Kiwi squad. So I jumped in it, and it wasn't a hard decision.
And
We were on a plane, went back and had a game against England, and then that was it. That was my last game.
well, you got to do it, especially if it's your last game and you don't know if you're getting another one. That's
Yeah. Well, like I said, any phone call when you get to opportunity to play for the black and white jersey, mate. Yeah, you grab it.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the Warriors for a second. So we talked about travel and all the rest of it. Now, when I look back at those Warriors teams, I think that there was opportunities there to make the semis and maybe just not good enough at times. And if you look at the finishes from 95 to 2000, when you finished up with the club, the team finishes 10th, 11th, and you got to remember too, these are 20-team comps. In 97, 7th in Super League of 10 teams. In 98, 15th, 99, 11th, and in 2000, 13th. When did it become, or did it become a thing at the club, or did you guys start to realise, okay, we're close enough, but it became a frustration thing? Were you guys aware of being close but not good enough?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like I mentioned earlier, when you're one team, one country, and after the first couple of years, the initial years, and so you've got 4 or 5 Super Rugby teams around. So when the Auckland Blues used to lose, when they soundly lost, the media would jump on how good the other teams were playing.
Yeah.
Well, when we had lost, the spotlight was on the Warriors, and why we're doing this. But we were trying everything. I think looking back at it, maybe it was just getting used to mental toughness for ourselves, being tough on ourselves, and getting accustomed to that week in, week out grind of 80 minutes. For us guys who hadn't who had only started playing in the NRL, but definitely, it's like it always comes down to mentality and attitude. I've always thought, but we've always come close. There's always been a couple of times when we've, maybe the bounce of the ball hasn't gone our way, a call here and there. But overall, I think it was just the attitude and just simple errors that let us down as a team, and just didn't let us get to play any finals back then. So yeah, bit of a shame.
I want to talk about your exit from the club and then your signing with Bradford. So you're one of the stars of the club, and we already touched on before that there wasn't too many Polynesian superstars back then, and yourself coming through, your cousin Nigel as well. The side's competitive, as we just touched on, not quite there, and the club finds itself in a bit of financial turmoil as well. Can you explain this whole era and what happened and how everything led to you leaving for Bradford?
Yeah, like you said, they come into financial trouble, and I think, long story short, they weren't able to pay the players. At the time, there was current Kiwis. There was about 5 or 6 of us current Kiwis, and we sort of held strong and said, "Oh, listen, if we lead the charge and say that, just to honour everybody's contract, including the young guys who just signed on a smaller deals. I think it was they were owing us a month or 2 months' wages, I think it was. So, but we just wanted everybody to get honoured for what they were owed, because we knew the competition was about to start. Everybody else had signed, with other clubs. And if worst case scenario, we could have signed somewhere else. We'd find the club being, we said, we're current international players. Our intention was to stay strong, stay as one, and get through this together. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And then there was a couple of cracks with guys within our group started to sign for started to sign, which caused a bit of uncertainty with guys, and then yeah, I think it was the World Cup at the same time as well. We're in England, and I guess the word got in over in England, the Warriors, and so ended up in a hotel reception area talking to the Bulls CEO and Brian Noble.
Yep. And I think I've written a story about this before, a little cheeky plug for my website, the81stminute.com. And I this might have been a few years back now, and I think I used Ali Lauatiti as the example of, and you mentioned Mark Graham, and I remember reading a Big League magazine article way back in the day where Mark Graham, I think it was the front cover, it said Ali Lauatiti will be the Michael Jordan of rugby league. And then within a couple of years, he's off and he's in the Super League, and he's not seen in the NRL again until years later, where he comes back and he's basically just there for depth and to help some of the younger guys. But can you explain, and I don't know if this played a part with your decision to leave the Warriors, but can you explain the family value system for a young Maori player or a young Polynesian player, and that financial stability and how important that is to look after your extended family? Did that play a part at all in your decision to secure a contract at Bradford?
Oh, yeah. I mean, family and faith is a big part of our culture of the Pacific Island and Māori, you know. So, that does play a big role. That wasn't why I signed for Bradford. Yep. But it was, it just so happened, a coincidence. I was in the World Cup playing in England. Things were in I guess our hometown wasn't in our home club with the Warriors wasn't too great. And when you mentioned about family, I had played with just the Warriors boys for the last 6-7 years, I think it was. And I've grown up with playing against these guys. Playing with these guys coming up through grade, so they were my family. So I had other clubs, there was clubs in the NRL that I was talking to, but in my mind I did not want to play against my mates, my family. So and I guess the opportunity to travel the world, being over in the UK at the same time, it all just worked out, which it still took a lot of getting used to, but I guess in that first year, winning the Super League Grand Final made things a lot happier, and the decision was right, and ended up staying there 8 seasons.
And Mark Graham, you said he was your idol growing up, and he's one of the greatest forwards to ever play rugby league. Kiwi, Aussie, Pommy, doesn't matter. He's just one of the best. And a couple of years ago, he actually went into the NRL Hall of Fame, which was awesome. Was he the Warriors coach at the time when you left as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have much to say to him about that?
Yep, and he was, there was a lot of things that happened behind the scenes, and I was glad to have the coach's support, and he backed us to what we were doing, and wanted to keep our unity, and the same, what we goal was to get everybody's, from the young guys you just signed to, ourselves, just to, for the club to honour what they owed us. So that's, it was great to have his support as the head coach and as the man what he meant to us. And like I think he left as well after that year. He moved on to other parts. I think rugby union. But it was to be coached under your idol was a bit of a unreal experience. Another one of those things in my career that I'll never forget. I think I remember one of the first things I did when he came to training was I asked for his autograph. I think at that time I was about 22 or maybe 23, and I felt like a little kid when this guy who still he was still bench pressing 150, 160 kilos, smoking a cigarette, had a cigarette in his mouth, carrying his clipboard, but I wasn't going to say anything to him because he still was built like a bloody bodybuilder. at the time. So yeah, it was awesome experience. One of those things I cherish, being coached by my childhood hero.
And all of a sudden, we just spoke about being perennial bridesmaids at the Warriors. You go from being bridesmaids, you hit the bloody jackpot when you go to Bradford. And I'll try to go through this as quickly as I can for people because I could be here for 20 minutes. You get to Bradford, you lose the 2002 Super League Grand Final. You win in 2003, and correct me if I'm wrong here. You win in 2003. You win the World Club Challenge. Lose 2004 Super League Grand Final. You win it again in 2005. You win the World Club Challenge again a couple of months later. What was that like? You just walked into the greatest Super League team, arguably, of all time. That must have been amazing.
Yeah, like I said, 2001 was my first year.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, you won that too, didn't you?
Yeah, so that was we lost in the Challenge Cup final and we won the Super League final.
Okay.
So yeah, we won one, then we lost the final. Then in 2003 we were the first ever team to win all three trophies available, and then won the World Club Challenge as well. So yeah, it was unreal. Like I said, I signed for, I think it was 3 years, ended up staying for 8. And it was a family club environment that kept me there. Had a couple of the Paul brothers that was there in my original year there, as well as another Tavita Waikona who I grew up playing in the junior Kiwis with. So had a great time. A couple of Aussie boys with Mick Withers from the Balmain Tigers.
Did you have Vagana as well?
Leslie Van der Colo came a year later, 2 years later. Then Shantaine Hape came, and they formed a pretty deep, lethal combination over the years. Yeah, we just had a great team, had a great bonding team. And we tasted some success over the 8 years I was there. Lifted some trophies, made some finals, made some memories.
And just for fans or Aussie fans or fans in New Zealand, can you explain what the difference is between the support for a team in the UK and what the fans were like in Bradford through these amazing years, compared to say what the supporters are like in Australia or New Zealand?
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's I've been in a stadium in the UK when there's 5,000 people there, but they sing like there's 10 or 15,000 there. They're just passionate fans who it's like they go to choir practice. The opposing teams fans go to choir practice, and then one set of fans will sing, they'll stop, and the other guys will clap, and then they'll sing back, and they'll be a sing-off challenge. And I guess the closest we've ever been, I believe, in the NRL is when. If you ever watch the Mate Matonga games, that's a sort of that sort of level is where the English I would correct that the Tongans have taken it to another level, but yeah, that's pretty close of how the English supporters were chanting and cheering, and their fan base gets behind their teams over there.
Have you followed what's happened to the club recently and their troubles? It's pretty sad.
Yeah, it's pretty sad, and it's always, I guess there's always a bit of corruption, and there's always money. At the centre of this, when it comes to, especially with our island teams, there's always, some issues with money and money gone missing. So it's a bit of a shame, and one bad apple spoils it for the rest. But I'm hoping as a league supporter and as a Pacific Island that Mate Matonga, that they continue on their the way that they're playing and how they're challenging and beating these top tier teams and making themselves in the top tier, and hopefully even the likes of the Fijian teams, the Samoan teams, it just improves the game, especially the international game. And as you see, the fans are getting out to back them.
Would you? And this is my own personal view, because of that last World Cup, and it wasn't just in Tonga but in Samoa and Fiji and whatnot. I saw some images of back on the islands, back in Tonga and Samoa. The fans, like hundreds of fans, just crowded around one little TV watching these games. I think, in my personal opinion, we need to start taking some of these games back to and let Tonga and Samoa host some of these bigger countries. And I know the stadiums may not be big enough at this stage, but wouldn't it be great to see some of these test matches, instead of played at Campbelltown or Leichhardt or wherever it might be, Auckland, and actually get some of these local these countries actually playing in their own backyard? That'd be amazing.
Oh, mate, well, yeah, that would be amazing, and that would be ideal, a dream for us, especially for our people that live in the islands, who the only time they can watch is as like you said, five or 10 different families on one TV screen. But yeah, like you said, it all comes down to the dollar, and whether it's the capabilities of a stadium holding an event and actually making money from it, which is, I guess, is the case for us the island stadiums and island venues.
And I just want to mention for everyone out there too, Joe Vagana was named in the Bradford Team of the Century. Now, if you look back through the history of any of these big English clubs, that is a mighty feat. What was it like? I assume that you were over there, or you went back for the night and a gala dinner kind of thing. What was it like to make that team?
I was still there.
Okay, cool.
I was still over there. So, and like any player would tell you, the first sort of respect is, you play for yourself and be the best you can, but then all you're playing for is that your teammates get along, that you don't let your teammates down. But then I guess with the fans are the next, that you're that they're backing you and they're supporting you, and I guess for the English as well, with the chanting, they definitely let you know if they spent the right money, if they spent they bought the right person, or they haven't. And I was just quite lucky, and I had a great bunch of guys around me that I was fortunate to get into their team of the century. So yeah, to get a pick from the fans was another special moment.
This might be a little bit too hard to answer, or it may not be, but looking back at those great Bradford teams of the early 2000s through to the mid 2000s, how would the Bulls have held up in week to week NRL battle? Where do you think they would have came?
Yeah, I always, at the time, we always asked ourselves that, we always said, man, we'd back ourselves to, be in that, in the finals, to be in the finals and give it a good run. And I guess, the difference is, when I first went over there, because I guess I was one of the, when I first went over there, I was still in my, I guess prime years.
Yep.
I wasn't going over to retire. I think I was 24, 25 at the time when I went over, so I still had a bit of juice. And over that year and the previous other years, I think Furno come over. So guys were starting to come over to the UK, still in their prime, still had a game, not coming over in their last 1 or 2 years just to make a couple of dollars and retire over there. So it changed the game, I guess, and made it a lot more competitive. I guess in the past you see big score lines where I think a lot of the influence of a lot of the Aussie coaches and with the defence, tightened up around the defence over the years in Super League. So yeah, it was a great game. It tightened up. It was a lot of stiff competition, but I guess for us in those years, we definitely saw ourselves. Well, I know as a playing group, we always asked ourselves, man, we could do this, and give it a good run in the Aussie comp, because it was a week in, week out sort of mentality, which I guess gets you into the finals in any competition, and we believed we had it.
You're over in Bradford, you're doing your thing, you're winning comps. As you just mentioned, you're at the peak of your powers, and doing your thing over there. But at the same time, in those early 2000s, the Warriors finally turn a corner, and they win the minor premiership in 2002. They make the grand final, and the Stacey Jones try early in the second half. We all know what happened with Richard Villasanti. I'm assuming you watched the game, but what were your feelings watching the Warriors, their rise, and seeing guys that you grew up with and played through the grades with, like Jones, Lauatiti, Fafa Ili, Melly, Jerry Ciu, Guttenbill, Swan. Did you have mixed emotions watching them become good?
No, listen, I was gutted. Gutted in the sense that I was missing out, because that was and still is my team.
Yeah,
that's the one that gave me the breaks. That's my hometown. I'm born and raised in Auckland, and I had I think it was 6-7 years from the start there. So I was gutted that I wasn't part of that finals for the club. But I was over the moon, and I was cheering on. I remember we all came over to my house and we watched those finals. And we cheered. There was a few of us over there, all the Kiwi boys and Aussie boys that came over. It was cheering on our boys, our Warrior boys. So mixed emotions, but mainly because like I said, I was only wishing I could have had that opportunity to play in those finals with the boys, but I was wrapped for my ex-teammates, the Stacys and Logan and the guys you mentioned, being able to make their charge to the finals.
Was it? Did you I know you said that was your team, but did it feel different watching them? Like, different ownership, all that stuff, different coloured jerseys, all that, or did it still feel like that was the Auckland Warriors?
Oh, it still felt like for me. It still felt like the Warriors. It still felt like that I was part of it. Even though I was wearing another jersey in another country, another competition, I was still part of that team. Still riding the wave with them, just not with my boots on and on the pitch with them. But it was really awesome to see. It was exciting times for us, and I forget which year when the Warriors played Roosters, when Ruben took the kickoff. That was one of those finals when he took the kickoff to Soliolo.
Oh yeah, and Soliolo. Yeah, no, I remember that he was playing the centres and Soliolo. It was knocked him straight out.
So that knocked him straight out, and I'm sure that was a quarter. That was one of the first week of the finals too. And I remember all of us English boys or Kiwi boys living in England, all at my house watching it. Just around. Oh yeah,
he's a freak, Ruben Wiki. He's an absolute freak. Have you seen him now? Obviously, you've seen him now. That's incredible, what he's done to his body. How old is he? We're born on the same day. Wow.
Both January 21st.
Amazing.
So we send a text to each other every year.
Did you say January 21st?
Yeah.
That's my mum's birthday as well, so there you go.
We're amongst good people there, but he's a couple years older, so he's 40. He turned 47 this year.
Wow!
But he's got a body of a bloody 25-year-old, and all of us fellas are too scared to call him because every time it talks, conversation always goes, well, once you come over, we'll do some training, we'll do some burpees, and he's got a session called Wiki Love. But to me, there's no love at all. It's just pure pain, but apparently it's good for you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, right.
The man's a freak. He's a freak, mate.
So, look, it's been a great chat, mate. As I told you off air, it does go very quickly, so we'll jump off in a second. But I did want to ask quickly 2 questions. The first one is, in your later years at Bradford, was there any conversation about you coming back for a last hurrah in the NRL, or was it you were comfortable in Bradford with what you'd done, and you were settled with the club, and you were happy with what you'd done? And but was there any chat about coming back?
Oh no. Like the last year, I said, this will be my last year. There was a couple of young boys that were coming through the club. You might have heard of one of them called Sam Burgess.
Yeah.
He was coming through, and I said, listen, man, I need to. The body saying no, the mind saying yes. The club was quite good, where they wanted me to carry on for a couple of years, because over there you get 10-year testimonials.
Mm-hmm.
So they even offered me a role, a way to get in for my 10 years. But I said, I'd love to, but I think it's the right time that I go on my own accord, rather than getting pushed out by the club or the fans. So no, when I decided, it was a tough decision. It was easy but a tough decision, and it was the right time for me. And I haven't missed it. I just since I retired, I've never missed any games. I haven't missed playing the game, but I've missed the I guess the changing room camaraderie,
Yep.
the pranks, the jokes, the swearing, the telling off, and the change, the halftime blasting from the coach and all. But but I had my time, had a good career. And yep, it was time for me to come home.
Now I've done a little bit of stalking online, and obviously very successful, Joe, in what you do now. Can you explain to everyone what Joe Vagana is doing these days?
Yeah. Well, if you ask me,
you're doing it right for yourself.
If I was going to do this, I'd never in a million years thought I'd be doing this. But it's I guess I'm in the hire. I'm hiring. I have a machine hire business with diggers and diggers and heavy plants, and also have a deconstruction company, and then it's deconstruction civil. So, we try to keep ourselves busy. But from what I learned in my playing, the little things, doing all the 1%, getting up and doing the extras, I've applied it into my work life, family life, and so far it's doing all right. The main goal is for myself is being able to employ a Māori and Pacifica people and contractors. So I've been very blessed.
You're a good man, Joe Vagana, and you're off the dishes tonight. Are you back on tomorrow?
I'm off the dish. No. Oh, yes, I am back on. So
what did you cook tonight, just by the way?
Homemade burgers it was for tonight.
Beautiful.
Easter burgers. It's homemade burgers. So, pretty wrapped with our burgers. It was all clean plates, so that was a good sign. It was a good dinner. So,
mate, well, just imagine going to Joe Vagana's house. I'd be eating everything on the plate because I'd be scared I'd get run over. So,
well, it won't be that too fast running these days. But if you ask my kids, they laugh at when I'm trying to do a sprint. A so-called sprint. But I still have enough energy to hold my own.
Look, Joe Vagana, you had an incredible career, and you paved the way for many young kids in New Zealand, and obviously you've got fans on both sides of the world. Thank you very much for speaking to us tonight on Top of the Props, and we will speak to you again soon. Joe Vagana, you're a gentleman, and enjoy the rest of your Easter weekend. Yeah, thanks for having me. Really enjoyed myself, and had a fantastic career. Played against some legends of the game, and forever cherish that. So thanks again.